Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Borough Crafton's November 4th budget meeting. We're going to be sharing a Word document first, and then we're going to be looking at an Excel spreadsheet later on. Manager McKibben is going to start with the 2021 first draft budget overview.
Okay, Mr. President. I really need to stress when I use the word preliminary, this is a very preliminary first draft budget. I say that for a lot of reasons, but we'll start on the revenue side. We still have not received our third quarter EIT numbers, and we will not for another 5 to 7 days. I believe this is a very important number to have, since it's totally COVID related, with maybe some of the people that were collecting, maybe getting a severance or whatever. I have no idea, but I think it would be more indicative of COVID going forward than the first 2 quarters that we have in hand. With that said, we have to take a guess as to what COVID's going to do in this preliminary budget, and we cut the 511 taxes right around 5.5 to 6% across the board. Secondly, real estate's very interesting. As you all know, we did the coupon, or whatever you want to call it, value of our realty tax due December the 31st. Well, I think a lot of people are going to wait till, or December, 31st. We'll probably wait till December 30th to pay with no penalty. Ironically, by the time we receive those monies under a cash accounting basis, that'll be a 2021 revenue. So as you may see, it looks like we've increased real estate collection considerably, but in fact we have not, because what we collect at the end of the year will now be a prior year revenue. So that's basically almost flat with a very slight increase. And that's only based on the fact that property values and property sales have been overwhelmingly positive in the borough in 2020. But again, we can't assume anything going forward at this point. But we do believe that that's a realistic number. Again, on the revenue side, we had to make some decisions here without really knowing what the policy is going to be, and that's the idea of having these meetings. They include an idea that we are going to pursue a general obligation bond. They also have an assumption involved that allowed Doug and I to move some of the things that used to be in the general fund as expenses and moving over to a large capital fund account from the revenues that a general obligation bond would bring in. It's again, it's an assumption. If it's an incorrect assumption, then we correct going forward. But to put any kind of document together, we had to make some assumptions, and this was one of them. On an expenditure side, we assumed the current hiring and staffing would remain the same. If that's not going to be the case, then again, we may have to make adjustments going forward. We also assumed, excuse me, that, well, I'm sorry, let me go back to the capital expenditures just very quickly. With all the ones that are in the pipeline, a lot of them do come with grant reimbursements. But we have to remember that with grant reimbursements, it's not automatic. We have to float our share up front, make the payment, and then apply for the reimbursement. That float period is anywhere between 60 to 90, to some cases 120 days. And that's money that we have to have in the bank and have to have going before we can get the reimbursements back in and resupply where it came from. With that said, we have some rather large commitments if we go forward with some of these projects. And we will need some money in the bank to pay those bills before we get some of the money back. Moreover, in some of the cases, we get no reimbursements, things like street reconstructions, road projects that the road tax will not cover. These kind of things call for a capital influx. And therefore, again, another assumption was made that that may be the case. Again, if it's not, we redo our assumptions and redo a new draft going forward. We also will need a little bit of policy guideline on how Crafton Celebrates works going forward. Historically, it has been a separate account with very little overseeing by the borough per se. If we're going to continue that way, then we'll have to adjust accordingly, or let us know, which way you would like that to proceed, whether it become a general fund budget item through and through, or it stays a separate fund like it currently is and has been with the borough. And finally, you will see, besides the general fund expenditures, that there are numerous other tabs down below of funds that we have separated out, and Doug will address these more than I will. But I think the key to one of the largest keys to what has been done is historically we have taken a lot of expenses that were storm sewer related and not reimbursing our general fund, but taking all those expenses out of the general fund. And that simply is not the case. And it is not where those expenses should be coming from. So I'll let Doug go into detail on all that with any questions. But there is a reimbursement into the general fund from the sewer account, a rather large one, because those expenses are large. And that includes engineering, that includes public works, that even includes our time. All those are expenses that should be coming out of the sewer fund and reimbursed into the general fund. And that's probably it in a nutshell for a general overview. But again, I stress, this is a very preliminary document, and we have time for it to be fluid. And I think getting this early start and getting input from all of council as to which way to proceed is imperative for us to prepare a budget that makes sense and it can be voted on in the first meeting in December. Thank you.
Thanks, Russ. All right, so I'll bring up the Excel document that you all sent over to us. So I'm going to stop sharing the Word document and bring up the Excel. Okay. We're on the first tab, the general. I just want to know, Russ or Doug, tell me how you want to navigate this.
Well, we can go straight down the list and give you an idea of where those numbers are being generated from and why they're there, if that makes the most sense to everyone.
Yeah, I don't know how much detail we want to. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I just see a picture of you, Russ, on my screen now. I don't know why. So I can't even see myself. Anyways, yeah, I think Russ covered the real estate, our issues there, or, we're going to be seeing more money coming in on real estate from the prior year. EIT, that's the big one hanging out there. Russ covered that. Pretty much everything else. I don't know. I hate going line item by line item, but if you guys want to do that, we can. But I think it's more just beneficial, at least for this first meeting, where we just kind of focus in on the higher, take a look at it from maybe 10,000 feet.
So, yeah, my recommendation then is to look at the subtotals and just do a little, this is why it differs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, real estate, we just talked about the EIT we touched upon. We'll know a lot more about that next week to see if we're collecting. No real issues, penalty and interest, 321, the business licenses, these all pretty much have stayed the same. The rents, those are the same. You know, we're probably looking at a little bit less in terms of liquid fuels money. The departmental, I mean, yeah, basically on the revenue side, everything is pretty much remained flat, or we decreased a little bit. But again, it's based on EIT. So
Yeah, I think the one of the other major ones that we did a fairly good slash on was rad money. I mean, we all know that's based on 1% of sales in the county. Time will tell again, but that's been lowered substantially, almost 30-40%, based on the idea that people won't be spending. But then again, everywhere I read, everybody's spending everything they have. But again, these are tough ones.
So, what's our line item on that?
357.01.
350.
701.
Got it. Thank you. 350.
so maybe
Got it.
Phil, are you controlling the
Yeah.
spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I can. So maybe if we could go to the 392, it's the last
Line 60.
area.
I just had a question then before we move on.
Yes.
So I know we had mentioned about we're waiting for the EIT. We're also waiting for the real estate tax. But the one thing that I heard was that home sales have been relatively on the rise. So is
Yeah.
it safe to assume that because you need to have an income in order to purchase a home, that our EITs might actually stay pretty stable?
I would love to hope that. I really hope that is the case, Anthony, truly. But if you give me about 5 days, I'll let you know whether or not that's the case.
Awesome. Yeah, because I don't know which bank would give you a loan to buy a house without having a.
I agree. I mean, as simplistic as that sounds, and we have all said the same thing here in the office. That's a fact.
2007 has entered the chat.
But just real quick, because mostly the larger entities that pay EIT are not due until October 31st.
Okay.
And by the time it's collated and whatever else by Jordan and sent out, it's usually about 5 to 8 days afterwards. That's why this number really is going to be a key in our next meeting.
Yeah, so next week we'll have a better idea of that.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, great. So if we could go to line item 392, the interfund transfers on the general fund. This is where the major change on the general fund side you'll see.
Okay.
But yet, why Phil gets this roll into Anthony's.
Can you see it?
No, we're still at first page real estate taxes, 301.
I think it might be frozen.
But yeah, so while we work through this, to Anthony's point, yeah, we are the biggest.
Stop sharing and then start again.
Yep.
Russ and I have talked, and we're very, very conservative. We have the grimmest outlook on the revenue side, or I'm sorry, on the expense side. No, revenue side, and on expenses, we're spending it like, you know, it's nothing. Just so you know, so if we're going to be wrong, we don't want to be wrong on the right side on the budget, if that makes any sense. So we've really tamped down expectations on the revenue side, and we've not inflated, but have a very accurate on the expense side, so that, you know. So here we go. Thank you, Phil. So we've got, we used to do this, but we're going to be transferring money from the sewer account of $500,000. Labor and equipment, when we're out working, leaf collection, that sort of thing, that all goes under, that's a sewer, related sewer fund expense. So we've got 250,000 coming in for labor and equipment, and 250,000 for the proposed bond. And you'll also
and so
notice that
in the
highway.
past, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
I'm sorry. And then just quickly, again, we're doing the
Mm.
same thing with the road fund, that we're transferring 150, and that's bond payment for all of the reconstruction projects and sewer separation projects that we have.
So can I ask a question? Are we saying that previously, because I'm sorry, I don't remember the details. I get into the budget when it's budget time and that sort of thing, that in the past, that labor and equipment, that 250K was just being charged to the general fund as like public works expense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so what we've identified is a big chunk of money that we've been paying out of our general revenue that we are qualified to get out of the sewer fund. And if I remember correctly, our sewer fund is in extremely good shape.
Very well stated.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
That was my question. So thank you, Coletta.
So any other questions at this, mid-level, I would say, review on the revenue side?
Okay, so can you state the same sort of thing for 392.35, the transfer from highway aid? Because I'm not quite sure that I
Oh,
know
so
exactly.
that's the liquid fuels
Liquid
money
fuels.
that would come in.
Ah, okay, I know it is. I know it is liquid fuels.
And
Okay,
we suspect that's going to go down from last year.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, thanks. And that we were transferring in, I think, in the past, or no?
Yes.
Highway aid, yes.
Yes.
Yes, I thought
But,
so. Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
So just a quick question. So it seems like, because I know we've been working on improving our budget and making it a lot more clearer, that we have these reserve funds that are there that we weren't necessarily pulling from appropriately, but we're pulling from the general fund. So now this will allow us, when we're pulling it from the correct funds, we're going to be able to use the general fund for what it's actually intended for. For other
Correct.
projects. Okay.
Yeah, correct. And as we go through the sewer fund and more to the capital fund, it's very clear, I believe, what we're spending our money on. And each line item is basically its own project number.
Okay.
So it's very open and transparent, and we can, see where the money's going. And to your point, yes, general fund is salaries, all the boring stuff that's basically you don't really have much control over. And yeah, so your point, you're correct.
Because I know that's a question that we receive a lot is, hey, we pay a road tax, where's it going? So this will allow us to give more insight, more transparency for residents, so that way they know where their tax dollars are going.
Yes.
Yeah, and real quick, Anthony, that road fund, I think we consider that more as the maintenance fund, where we're just asphalting and doing an overlay, that type of thing, not the total reconstruction of streets out of
The sewer fund and other areas.
or just out of the road. For the road fund, there's not enough money coming in on the road fund tax portion of the millage to allow for any major reconstruction program projects of borough streets, unless you just want to do one a year and not pave any other street, pretty much.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Russ, because I think there is some, natural misconception about that, and so it's nice to have more clarity to that exact point succinctly. So that's well, I think that's well stated. Thank you.
And I will say thank you from an accountant standpoint, having better insight onto where and utilizing the proper funds and having proper tracking of where things are definitely helps with transparency and making decisions. So thank you to the team for making these adjustments.
Mr. Sample has been very valuable at pointing these things out. So give credit where credit's due. Also, to whoever mentioned it, with cash accounting, it's very difficult Actuarial accounting, we could handle these a little bit differently, but we cannot. But I don't want to get into the weeds on that either.
Wait, are you saying accounting's easy, Russ?
Oh, hell no. Hell no. I'm sorry, Bill.
So, okay, any other questions on the revenue side at the moment? So we'll jump into the expense side. And again, these are pretty standard stuff. You know, nothing major has shifted here. We did bump solicitor a bit to accurately reflect what we're trending in 2020. And we also have a lot of these projects coming up, and then we have put some solicitor fees in the capital fund, or will be doing that. I can't remember if I did that or not. It's been a haze. I know Russ, you had mentioned it. So, but so you'll see a bump in solicitor fees just because what we're trending towards, and we've got a lot of projects next year as well that will require some solicitor input.
And we have asked, and he has agreed that these bills will be separated so that we can place them exactly where they need to be. If it's solicitor work over a storm sewer agreement, well, goes into a different fund than whether or not he's giving us advice on personnel issues, et cetera, et cetera.
Hey, real quick, are we frozen, Phil?
No,
Okay. Just
can you
checking.
see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, good. We do one luxury we are treating ourselves to is we put some money in for a new financial software package. That's in 407 data processing. So there is some money for that project. But again, all these other line items have basically remained the same.
Just random question. What have we selected a software package?
No,
We have
No.
not.
we have not. So I think we should probably just jump to police services, the 410s. Oh, I will note the 408 engineering. That's a lot of, you'll see the engineering has gone down significantly on the general fund, but it's being appropriately charged to the sewer fund, capital, and road fund. So you'll
Can I
notice
ask a
engineering.
question? I'm sorry, I was on mute when I was trying to ask a question about the software expense. I was looking. So if I was looking at the right columns, it looked like you were adding another $13,000-14,000
Yes.
over previous years. So that's the ballpark that we're expecting.
And there was also some subscription fees with the TASER software. Those will
Right.
reduce. So I think we have about 20 to 25,000 for
Right.
financial software.
Right.
Okay. And are we expecting to be doing this? I know we haven't selected it. Is this a one-time expense with maintenance costs over, or is that
Yes.
a yearly cost
It'll be
that you're anticipating?
not a major, but a significant upfront cost, and then just a monthly maintenance
And then like
fee.
a 15 to 20% of whatever it is
Correct.
annually.
Correct.
Okay, super. Just wanted to make sure what we
Yeah.
were thinking about beyond. Thanks.
So on the police service side, on 410, the chief had submitted a budget of with the 10th officer. This proposed budget does not include the 10th officer, so that's a point of conversation. And then capital outlay, we were initially going to try to purchase the vehicle outright, but because of budgetary constraints, we're looking to do a 3-year lease purchase. And the good news on hospitalization, that has actually stayed the same. We did not have an increase for 2021. So that's helped us significantly too. So those costs have remained fairly neutral.
I have a question because I know originally the body cameras were supposed to be split out between 2 years. How is that going to be impacting for next year's budget?
It's not, because we're over budget in that category because it was a 1-year purchase.
Okay.
Yeah. And the 3-year lease purchase program is very, very common for purchase of equipment that after 3 years, for all intents and purposes, is useless.
And then the other question in regards to the 10th officer, if a recommendation were to be made, when realistically would we receive a recommendation in 2021, or would that be 2022 for a 10th officer?
It would depend on civil service. We'd have, and we do, I believe, have to put a list together. I mean, that's not a quick process, but you can turn it around in 6 to 9 months.
Agreed.
Okay. I definitely think before we add something into the budget, that's something that we need to have an honest conversation around. If it's, because I don't want to say we budget for something in 2021 and realistically we're not going to get a recommendation until 2022, and then we just earmark money that can be utilized in other areas for the police department.
So yeah, so that's the police in a nutshell. But like I said, yeah, the council will have to discuss that 10th officer.
So are there any expenses that should be reflected here for the process of creating the civil service list, or anything that would go into that?
Yeah, so under 410.53 Civil Service Commission, we've budgeted 3,000.
410.53, got it. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so that should be pretty, that gives, it's a fair representation of what it's going to cost us.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you have a testing cost.
Right.
And
Yeah, and I'm aware of that. That's why I asked, and I
Yeah.
didn't see that. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm going to have to start wearing glasses. This is the first budget cycle that I'm having problems seeing my own budget. Yeah, because I was having trouble finding that myself. So that's police service. Any questions on that? Moving on to fire. The transfer to the fire equipment fund, that is increased to $100,000. That's the big change here. And that's for the additional fire truck. Mike, I don't know if you wanted to touch upon this, because this is your, yeah.
I don't mind. For some reason, I lost the budget on the screen, so give me a second to pull it back up.
So is this a change, Joe? If we're transferring the money for the purchase of the fire truck, or I thought that typically the borough owned the equipment.
They do. This is no chance. What we have here is we still have, I believe, 3 payments left on the aerial, and then we start the new payment of $65,000, $66,000 on the new pumper. You add the two together, we're at $100,000.
Okay, so my question, just so I understand what's actually happening here, we turn that money over, we pay that money directly, and we hold title to that equipment. Is
That
that
is correct. That is correct. That is correct.
okay? Thanks.
Is
I
it
just
also-
was concerned that the way this was showing something new was happening. Thank you.
Is that including the SCBA as well? I know we did one loan for that.
The SC, it's kind of the SCBA was paid under a combination of monies that were in the bank that were historically there for the last 5-6 years to pay for it, and that's that $22,000 going back in. That's a fund. That's a separate fund that's set aside with a contribution each year so that we have monies for those type of major equipment purchases that the fire department needs. The trucks are totally separate. So no, the majority of the payment for the truck was the truck.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, Mike, did you have anything else under the fire budget? Okay, moving on, a change that had, under code enforcement, 413.
Doug,
Yes,
real quick, I don't know why it wouldn't unmute me, but just on the fire thing, Coletta was right that about the borough owns title to the fire trucks. We only have one aerial payment left, was my understanding, not 3 years. It was just 1 year. And the pumper payment the rescue payment would be in that 100,000. Down at the end, my only question is at the end of the spreadsheet where it has transfer to SCBA fund. I think maybe if we would change that to like a minor equipment fund. So turnout gear, SCBA that may come up, in another 15 years, the stuff that is a big ticket item, but we have the money to put it away now. So if we have $100,000 bill, we don't.
Yeah, hey, Mike, two things. The KME truck is 21, 22. The last payment is 23.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, I have it here in front of me. And also, you are correct. That 22,000, when we say transfer, that's not going to where it says. It's not an SBA fund. It's actually a separate fund. It's called the Fire Equipment Fund Account. So that's just for clarification purposes. No big deal, but we'll change the wording, but that's where it's going.
Right. And I think the rest of that pretty much stayed the same, Doug, from last year to this year, except that the big one was the truck.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we separated it back out, Mike, instead of putting it into one big general pie.
Okay. I appreciate it.
The next item, 413 code enforcement. I think we're actually changing this. This is the commercial fire inspections. We put 5,000 as a potential cost. On the revenue side, we had 5,000 coming in. So this will be it's just more of a coding on the budget where we're going to be paying this fire inspection personnel from. It might even be part-time wages, but it's revenue neutral. Everything offsets because we're bringing in the inspection fees and we're paying out. So it's a wash, but that's something new in the budget. The next item on 413, demolition of properties. We've taken this out of the general fund and moved this to the capital fund. So that's kind of garbage contract.
One quick section. It also still keeps that position of code enforcement as part-time.
Correct. Yes, it's part. Yeah. Garbage contract. We're looking at a 4% increase. It's an option year. This will be discussed at our next workshop meeting or committee meeting.
Correct.
Committee of the whole. So that's reflective of that increase in the price, and we'll probably want to correspondingly increase our service fee for the garbage, so that we are breaking even on the garbage as well as our administrative cost inside that we have to deal with. So I'll probably see a fee increase in the garbage, but that'll be discussion at our next meeting.
When's that contract over?
It's over this year with a 2-year extension possibility at a negotiated rate that's already in the contract. If we agree to the extension,
I mean, do we want to go out for proposal?
you're not gonna get many people coming back in. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess my gut recommendation is it's not worth the hassle, but that's just my gut
Yeah.
recommendation.
So can I ask about the recycling, since there's been so much in the news lately about are things really being recycled? Has our I guess we don't want to call supplier, but our vendor, has there been any discussion about this I mean, because, you know, it's a significant chunk of money that we're paying extra, and if a large amount of this is really ending up in the landfills, it seems like something that we need to look at.
So let me jump in. Yeah, this is a concern within our region here. Because we're over 5,000 or 3,000, 3,500, forget the number, residents, we're required to recycle. So we're going to get hit with it, whether the hauler is doing it or not, unfortunately.
Okay.
And we've not found any evidence to the contrary that they're not recycling.
Okay. All right.
So just to clarify real quick, like, even if they weren't recycling, and let's say they were, I'm just saying, not if they were throwing it in a landfill in one pile, we would still have to we'd still have to put out a recycling bin because of the state.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's true, but in a certain contract that I'm aware of, that's within a cog that I'm aware of, they are not accepting cans or newspapers anymore, only plastic. They don't want them.
I see.
No bottles either, sorry.
Right. I'm not.
Yeah, no glass, no newspapers, I'm sorry.
Right. I you know, my only question for the recycling is this may not be a budgetary question,
Right.
but you know, I would prefer to see us have a contract in which we had like provided recycling containers, like some of the other communities do, but that's just me. So to Russ's point, it may not be worth dying on that hill for that. But to Philip's point, you know, if we came out for a contract, you know, that's one of the things I would like to see for this community is to have some uniform receptacles.
Mm-hmm.
2 points on that. I know beginning of COVID, we had this conversation when trash service ended abruptly, that it was brought to our attention that we actually have a pretty good contract compared to some of our surrounding communities. So definitely think it's something that we really should address, that 2-year option, because I know some of our surrounding municipalities don't accept glass, for instance. One of the other things I would like to look at as well is the volume of recycling, because I know right now we're doing every other week. I know within my household, for instance, that's not enough. So I would say that this is something that we need to have a conversation behind to make sure that we're providing the proper services for our residents.
All right, well, we'll have a conversation with them. I'm not going to get into the weeds on this. I think we need to get more info and bring it back to council. I know there's things going on that in the back end, yeah, they're collecting your stuff, and if there's no market, they're not storing it. It's going somewhere, and it's the landfill, and that's just the way it is right now because the markets aren't there, and it's unfortunate.
But it's stuff well beyond our control.
Right.
So,
Right. It's not even, you know, something we would tangentially have control over, even if we wished it to happen.
No, I mean,
Right. If it was something we were adamant about, our move is to lobby the state legislature and
yeah,
not. So
yeah.
yeah, and
all right,
this-
moving on.
yeah.
Okay,
So
great.
Point made.
Public Works, we've split out the foreman, and then the salaries are addressed appropriately. We do have to replace 110. That is our crew cab, and that would be a 15-year lease purchase. Yes. And on the 433, we've bumped materials for stairs and sidewalks up to 10 grand. We bought that mini excavator, which we're going to be using to replace areas of sidewalk that have been disturbed by the street trees. our goal is 3 pads and under. That's what we're comfortable with in-house. And then we'll actually have a contract for, larger areas that have been affected. But so there's an increase there. But
3
other than
pads
that-
and under, I think, is a great in-house catchphrase for that. I think that's great. That's
Yeah.
perfect. That's the perfect amount for, I think, for that.
Can I jump back? I think Doug, maybe you misstated. We were talking about our vehicle capital purchase. And I thought I heard you say a 15-year lease. I think you were talking a 3-year lease purchase
Oh,
at the rate of 15 grand a year.
yes, what you just said,
Okay.
Aletta. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. No, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't the one.
No, Doug wants to run the trucks back into the ground like they have been, so
Okay. All right.
it'll work out great.
Yeah, we're slated to replace 2 trucks this year in Public Works. One will come out of
Okay.
the general fund and the other will come out of the sewer fund. That's truck 108.
Okay.
Can I ask a real quick question, Doug? You mentioned,
Sure.
Colette, I didn't mean to cut, I didn't cut
No,
you off.
I'm done.
Okay, thanks. You mentioned when you were talking about the concrete work, you said something about the stairs as well. Would that be the, so you're referring to like the stairs, for example, on my street that are in gross disrepair, that kind of thing?
Potentially.
Okay.
The focus really is on the sidewalks now, but we will make any necessary emergency repairs to the stairs to keep those open.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm not the only one. I know there's some in some other parts up on the hill there. But I do want to make sure that, we're not forgetting those. I understand they're not something we're going to be able to rebuild from the ground up. But just in the way in which that you were trying to extend the life of our assets to the best we can in-house, I want to make sure that our residents can run up and down them and not trip and fall or fall down them, that kind of thing.
That's a great point that I haven't thought about yet.
They're getting a lot of use, especially in pandemic time for, people exercising or running them. I get walkers, the
We really
same
need to
walkers
do
of this.
an inventory of the stairs and the necessary repairs.
Right. And they're missing, safety handrails. Some of the handrails are broken or rusted off, and they're sheared off at the concrete there, and the paint and stuff, at night. So even a little TLC would go a really long way.
Time constraints were an issue, Brad, this year, but we are going to do a complete sidewalk inventory and rate them accordingly so that we can prioritize what needs to be done in 2021.
No, I totally get that. I'm just trying to make sure it's one of those things that's, on the radar.
It sure is.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question. I know we had mentioned code enforcement under the purview of the fire. Have we discussed code enforcement under the building code enforcement, or is that later on in the budget?
No, that was there. I made it a point to let you know that code enforcement will remain a part-time position. That what I'm sorry. What Doug was alluding to was the fire inspection service that we're going to start up under the fire department. But this budget is the same as last year. Our code enforcement officer working part-time.
Okay.
I have some opinions on that, but that's what the budget is reflecting at this point.
Okay. If possible, maybe for next week, if we can look at possibly providing more support, whether that be another officer or even just simple secretarial support for that department. I definitely do think it's something that's very important going forward, both from a safety standpoint, but also from a tax roll standpoint as well.
I think we can all agree that it's very important.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling that out. I think it went by a little too fast that I didn't catch it.
Perfect. Okay. Moving on to recreation. We bumped up wages on the pool manager position. The management, so that's reflective in the pool personnel line item of 80,000. And then also on the capital improvement side, new filters, pump, and this will also be the DCNR grant. Russ, if you want to announce that. we got word. Are we frozen or is this good?
Can you see the spreadsheet?
I can. It looks like Russ is frozen.
Oh,
So
no, I am
Oh.
frozen, but not because,
I wanted you to announce the DCNR letter you got today.
yeah, I sent that out to everybody. We got $26,000 for the
For the master park plan.
master park plan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's where that 41,000 includes that. And then obviously there's an offset on that as well because of the grant. Any questions on recreation?
Yes. With regards to the expenditures that we would have had for the pool, are we gonna roll any of the 2020 funds into the 2021? Like what, I don't really see that, like with regards to like the capital.
Yeah, I'm waiting for all the change orders to come in on the pool liner and everything else to see what we have left from the grant. Kind of hard to reflect that right now, but to answer your question, the answer will be yes. As soon as
Okay.
as soon as we have a better feel what that number is going to be.
Okay. So maybe next week we can have a little more
We
discussion.
should, yeah, we're getting close. We're getting close to where we'll probably be being asked for final payments on both the park projects and the pool liner.
So question on the recreation, is this simply Parks and Rec, or are we also including the rec board and having some funds for them as well?
I did not include the rec board, but that's not to say that we can't, or, that's a council. I didn't reflect anything like that because I forgot about it and didn't really know. So,
Okay.
I think it came out, that would go to my initial comments, Anthony, about, how we fund things. Because I know there's been a lot of discussion about Crafton Celebrates. And then, of course, a much more active rec board that wants to do programs within the borough that are going to need funding. And we're open to anything for that change.
So while we're under the topic of recreation, I mean, this is something I can speak to being on the rec board. So the rec board that we currently have is very active. We just had the Haunted Crafton, and there are going to be similar to what Haunted Crafton coming up for the holiday season.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of things, and I know I've been meeting with them. I know we've met with them in regards to the pool and the parks. So there is, I definitely think recreation is something that we need to, in the budget, I would like to see it, if possible, have everything under one category. So that would include also Crafton Celebrates. So anything that now is under recreation, which includes the parks, the pool, Crafton Celebrates, events, it should be one master subtitle, recreation, and everything else underneath it. So that way, when the average person's looking at this budget, there is simplicity and oversight as to, okay, this all falls under recreation. It's not its own separate thing. There's no confusion.
How about
Because the way it's set up.
How about a recommendation that we pull the pool out all by itself and then have a recreation line items separately?
That would actually be perfect, because the pool is more under the oversight of the borough versus where Crafton Celebrates and other events are under the purview of the rec board.
We will work on it and have an example for you next time we meet.
Perfect. Thank you.
Gotcha. Yeah. Am I unmuted? Yeah, good. Perfect. Parks. We've got some money for the shelters. I think we want to do a roof or some upgrades there. But again, not much change. Shade tree. You'll notice that 455.37, the health maintenance line item, we've reduced that because that's the thinning of the trees that were dead or diseased. We've almost eliminated that. All the trees that need to be removed. So that's reduced to 15,000. Library, that's stayed the same. We did from last year. No changes to the community activities. So now we get into 471, the debt service areas. Now we've got 2 loans out from PNC for the heavy equipment and a dump truck lease. I know we've kind of gone back and forth, but it was my suggestion that we pay these off to get these off the books, because we're going to be assuming $450,000, give or take, depending on the amount of the bond, and if we do move forward, that we're going to have to cover under the debt service. So it would be my suggestion, we pay these off this year, which we are able to do, and then just have this solely for the bond, and then the bond is broken out on what we're using it for. So that's the big change here on the budget. So we'll take a moment here to discuss that.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I would concur with that assessment.
Yep.
Okay, then that's so that really ends the
I'm sorry, Doug, sorry,
General
I
fund.
was trying to unmute myself. Whenever you were saying this year, you meant in the 2021 fiscal year, not with whatever's left over at the end of 2020, right?
I mean 2020, pay them off this
Oh,
year.
okay.
Get them off the books and focus solely on this bond and capital improvement fund.
Sure, makes sense. If we have it, let's do it.
We do have it under the general fund surplus account.
Okay. Here ends general fund, unless any other questions. Okay, if we want to hit the sewer fund. Tab.
Can I suggest we just all got this today? Maybe we take a couple days to look it over, and before we just go through it, I'd like to look through it before we just, ramble through.
Yeah, we've hit our hour. I'm good with if this is a stopping point for everybody, we hit the general tab, and the next week we can go through the different.
Did you want to hit the bond tab just to show you what just to?
I think that would be good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I think I
can you
want
go over the timeline? Do you want to go over the timeline of what we have to do this
Yeah, I
month?
have that. We can.
What, Kalita, can we? We'll go over this tab, and then we'll go over what we have to do this month to move this thing forward.
Also, let me ask this question. So before we would wrap up today, because I know there were some policy issues and stuff like that. So we should discuss anything that is needed by the administration in order to come back next week fully prepared as well.
Well, I think we have got a suggestion of how to handle code enforcement, and we'll come back with a suggestion on that for sure. I think we also have an idea of how we want to see how rec is funded and how it's separate than the pool. We will come back with that as well. No, I think we have an idea that when we come back, then you can say that's not what we meant, and we can go back to the drawing board. We have 3 or 4 weeks to do that, and that's the good part.
Great. So you have all the tools you need. Awesome.
We think so.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the preliminary general budget is pretty close, with just those couple of exceptions that you just mentioned.
Okay, we're going to move on then.
Yeah, so Phil has the bond, the proposed. This is all proposed, nothing set in stone. So we're potentially looking at a $7 million issue, and these are the projects that we've mapped out. you'll see obviously the total estimated cost, any grant offsets, borough costs, and then the tentative schedule. And we can move these dates, you know, if we want to do Emerson next year, we can move that up the list. And then how the project is funded. And then as you move to the right, you can see the percentages of the debt service and how they break out. So we might want to actually potentially, since we're doing 44% in road, take a little bit more out of the road fund for the bond issue. But you know, these are discussions that we can have next. This is just a broad overview. But you know, you're looking at almost $16 million in projects, and 9.1 million is funded by grants. So that's that's an amazing number that is funded. You know, that is free to the residents of Crafton. I mean, 9.1 million in a couple of years is amazing. Never have seen that. So that's the broad overview on the bond tab, and I don't have anything more to say.
All right, Russ, why don't you go over what the capital guy said?
The capital guy said the following: if we want to move on this, we're going to have to move an action item up to the agenda for Monday. Basically, a motion to publish a pre-enactment notice of a debt ordinance. I can get some wording from Steve on that very quickly and have that done. And also, we would highly recommend, after interviewing 3 different bond suppliers, for lack of a better word, we were very impressed, and I think I can speak for a few others, with Huntington Capital Markets. And I would highly suggest that we have a motion, again, an action item on the agenda meeting to appoint Huntington Capital Markets as our bond underwriter. Obviously, this can wait till the following meeting, the whatever, it just moves things back 2 weeks. But if we want to move quickly, these would have to be action items on the meeting on the 9th.
Hey, Russ, can I ask a couple questions about?
Absolutely, Steve. Or Mike. Sorry.
I got you. So your
Right.
recommendation is to go ahead and do the bond and go with Huntington and try to get this thing. Now, here's my only question. Budget comes down, we're in budget time. For some reason, council does not vote to complete this. What's our exposure at that point? Or can we get this going and then work it with the budget to the final, vote? How's that?
I'm sorry, Mike. I'm a little confused.
Okay, so number one, we vote in the next meeting to appoint Huntington Capital.
Okay.
So then we work the budget out and say in December, we vote on a budget, but we don't vote on the capital improvements. What's our exposure at that point? Or are we saying that we have to do that on Monday?
No, we don't have to do that. At some point, though, in the next month or so, if we do what we're going to do on the 9th, we are going to have to delineate the projects that we want this bond to be used for. Now, it can be in general type terms. It doesn't have to be, well, we're going to fix this from point C to point D or anything like that. But in general, you have to give an overview of what these bond funds are going to be used for. That's the only action we would have to take that I can see, and Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, before we actually pass this budget in the first meeting in December, other than some minor other things that don't require councilmatic action.
That sums it up.
I got another meeting, a school meeting I got to go to, but I'm in favor of that. So I apologize to everybody, but I got to get off.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Mike.
you being here.
And I had a question for Mr. McKinnon, just to make sure the action items that you were talking about for the next meeting, those don't bind us to anything specific. They just get the ball rolling.
Absolutely not.
There'll be an ordinance you have to pass, and yeah, there'll be a lot more approvals that are needed before the actual, okay, we're doing this borrowing. So yeah, there's a lot more steps we need to take.
Yeah, and this timeline isn't etched in stone. We asked him to give us a timeline just so we had a general idea when the funds may be available, when the bonds will be sold. I mean, it says February 1st. I think I sent this out to everyone. I'm not sure if I didn't. I apologize. It's been a busy day. But it's not etched in stone. And can we wait till, if it doesn't come through till March 1st? It's not the end of the world. We have proceeds in place. We have proceeds in the bank to cover upfront costs until this, for the things that are in here that aren't going to be started or maybe just started, that we really don't have an issue as far as having the funds to pay for any costs that come forward before the bond proceeds come in the bank and come into our.
Sure, sure. I just wanted to just double check to make sure,
Yeah.
'cause I'm on board for getting housekeeping items in line and getting that done, as long as we can have a full and frank debate on the ultimate issue later on down the road.
Absolutely. Again, the only two things are a motion to publish a pre-enactment notice of a debt ordinance, and then a motion appointing the Huntington Capital Markets as our bond underwriter, who then will assist us in when we have to enact everything else and assist us in wording, et cetera. And then we have to appoint a bond counsel that represents us, and we have some recommendations for that too, but we don't need to get into that tonight.
And just to piggyback briefly, we are using the bond too because of the Algazan Grow grants. We're almost using the bond funds as our own bank. So we can outlie that those costs and while we wait for the reimbursement. Now, if we decide not to go with a bond direction, we are going to need to open up some sort of a borrowing or line of credit,
Right.
because we're going to have major expenditures on those grows. So we were using this bond as a being our own bank, basically.
And just to sum it up as best we can before we get crazy here, this is the absolute best time to go for financing of this type. We will, I don't think in my lifetime, maybe not in some of yours, we'll ever see rates like this and a demand like this for this type of product. It's really a unique time. And I mean, I highly recommend that we consider this action. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, we're going to get two cracks as a borough in two economic downturns where financing is cheap. And this, I mean, we're not going to get, I mean, it's unlikely we're going to get a third one. So I would agree. I think that this is, you know, after the Great Recession, the COVID recession hits, and this is a good time to get that. And I would agree. It's now or never.
So if I may, basically we've been very aggressive and gone after a lot of grants where we have to match a lot of those funds. And right now, I know a lot of folks are afraid of debt. They're afraid of bond issuance. But when you take a look at the economics and the time, cost, and value of money, we'd be very stupid not to leverage the tools that we have at hand. Over the years, as a borough, Crafton has been very responsible with its funds. However, we do have a lot of infrastructure, a lot of projects that do need investment. And if we've seen anything from this year that has been very surprising, even in a downturn in many municipals around us, and I know somebody had mentioned this the other day, where a lot of municipalities are expected to go bankrupt. We are nowhere near facing that. That what we're seeing is, despite pandemic and downturns in the employment market, that folks are buying homes in record numbers and investing more money, increasing the values in our houses. And as a municipality, we need to make sure that we are providing the support to our residents that are investing in their homes and really driving home this investment that, you know, while we're investing in our homes individually, that as a municipality, we're investing in our town as well. Because this is going to really set us apart from all the municipalities around us.
Yes, and not to dig real deep into it, but it's the our bond rating as being proposed by Huntington, or what they're looking at, is due to the fiscal management of the borough and the positions that we are in, that we will get a bond rating that is well above what most municipality our size will get, which means our rates are lower, our costs are less, and our proceeds are more.
I mean, let's be honest, business sense. I mean, $16 million worth of investment for putting up maybe 7 million, that doesn't happen in the market, point blank, period. So we definitely need to take advantage of all the funds that we've received through grants. And you know what? This mentality of, we need to do things the right way the first time and not have to revisit it.
Yep.
Because that's what this town deserves.
Well, I agree, and I think it's been a great job by everybody on the team here to get us to this point. So thanks to all of council, to administration, and to the engineers and every grant agency that's helped Crafton get to this point to be able to make the investment in the community. And I think we're in good hands with our professionals, and we'll meet next week. We have our meeting on Monday, so I think everybody's in agreement that it's going to be okay to take an action on Monday, though it is our regular discussion meeting. That if we have to take an action, we understand we're all on the same page. It was discussed at this meeting. We're going to move forward.
Phil, I just want to make a point real quick. I'm sorry. I think it just came to my attention. The 11th, next Wednesday, is Veterans Day.
Oh, yes.
So
And it's a Veterans Day and staff, the building's closed.
okay, did we already accommodate for that in the schedule?
I don't think so.
Womp womp. Sad
Okay.
trombone.
So, but our next meeting, meeting, well, we have our meeting on Wednesday, our budget meeting. So are we going to have a twofer on Wednesday?
No,
Just
our regular meeting on the 9th is fine. Our budget meeting on the 11th is Veterans Day. I'm
Not
sorry.
fine.
well, I think then maybe we should just have the budget conversation on Monday. Then what is that? Can we do both? Because most of the conversation is
Can we
going to
just-
be about the budget anyways.
Can we just do it on Wednesday?
Well, I mean,
No, the Wednesday is the holiday.
Or-
He's saying.
Move it to
Can we
Tuesday?
just wait to ask Steve if we can do it and then come back to it?
yeah, I mean, you kind of, I'm sorry, we have to make some decent changes to the budget, and
Yeah, and I don't think it
have
should be
agenda
late
items
2
to
weeks.
discuss on Monday, and I don't know if we can have anything ready for you by Monday that's gonna make sense other than
So why
So
not
you wanna-
Thursday the 12th?
just saying.
So you want to advertise it for Thursday, or is that what you're asking? Do you want a new?
11, 1, 2. So if we don't do Wednesday and we push out to the already advertised 18th, we have the 18th, the 25th is the day before Thanksgiving, but I mean, clearly, I mean, do you guys think we can get there and be happy in 2 more meetings? We might be able to, the
I
way things
actually,
are going.
So
I do. I think this, yes, I do. This is much,
Okay.
I mean, it's just me. I mean, you correct me if you don't feel the same.
Okay, and Coletta, to your point, if we do not do next Wednesday, we have the 18th, the 25th, the 2nd, the 9th, and then our first meeting in December where we would pass would be after. So we would actually have 4 more budget meetings scheduled, even if we don't do
Oh.
next Wednesday.
Oh,
Okay.
that's, yeah.
Wait a minute, so, because we were the 14th is actually,
That is correct.
oh, wow, yeah, I'm just looking at that's like the latest it can possibly be, right? Yeah, so
yeah.
then I'm all for give you guys a little more time.
We would appreciate that. We do have a few things that Doug and I will need to discuss and move around and try to do it in a way that
Okay, so let's,
will make it work for you guys.
All right, so
okay,
we're
so
gonna,
we'll just cancel.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
All right, that's just, so
And then
we're
we'll
gonna
have-
call a lid here tonight then?
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Great
Anything
job,
else?
everybody.
Well,
Appreciate the
stop
time.
recording for a second. Is there anything else before we go or no?
Hold on. Let me,